Today I will paint anemone petal with a big water drop. Why do I need to paint petal? Because my next project will be a bigger anemone flower, and before starting bigger, more complex composition, it is very good to practice on something smaller, more easier, to get to know your subject, color mixes, texture of the surface of this flower. And then, after little practice, we can go on to bigger and more complex. Starting this tutorial with transferring line drawing, on the other side applying graphite layer. Be sure that your outline is very light, don't push too hard your pencil. With elastic eraser removing graphite marks. And another thing, I will be using watercolor mixes that I pre-mixed in my previous video, and they're still good. There are still plenty of those watercolor mixes on my palette, so I will be using them. You don't need to wash your palettes after mixing, trying, experimenting some watercolors. If they're completely alright for your new tutorial, you can use them. I'm using two water jars, one for washing and one for applying water layer. We can start painting this anemone petal. I have mixes from the previous video, applying with round synthetic brush, water layer, starting with ultramarine blue and permanent rose, and applying to the shadow area of this petal. We can clearly see in the reference that there are this slightly curved area on the petal. My first layer is still very light, very transparent, adding a little bit of ultramarine blue to my mix. Pushing watercolors where we need them while the surface is still a little bit moist, but not too much water, no puddles of water or watercolor mixes. Everything is very transparent and small amount of water on the surface. If I will lift my paper, nothing will drop or come off the paper. It's just a little bit moist on the surface of the paper. Constantly checking reference. This is very important in realistic painting. We don't need to think and imagine something. Everything is visible in the reference. The lower part of the petal, the edge part, is slightly darker, and then we have a curve which is completely exposed to light. Also, water drop has two light highlights, which we will also leave out. I'm not using masking fluid, and I will not be using any white paint. Smoothing the applied layer, leaving the light area light. And I'm leaving light area much wider than it appears in the reference, so I will not lose it while I'm applying layers of watercolors further. Now let the layer dry, and then we can continue to the next one. Moving forward with more finer brush strokes, using fine tip brush and watercolor mixes that we have on our color palette, which is ultramarine blue with permanent rose. Let's take a closer look on petal veins. We see in the reference, take a closer look and study the reference, that line breaks. It goes from the petal, and where is the water drop? It slightly changes its placement. That's because the water drop is enlarging that area on which it stands. And as we are painting this petal super detailed, we need to consider these little changes. I'm speeding up the process of painting this anemone flower petal. Full tutorial is available on my Patreon, from the starting brush strokes till the finishing touches. Here's a closer look of my fine brush strokes. I'm working with the very tip of the brush. It's almost like only one bristle is touching the paper surface, so lines should be fine. With finer tip brush, making petal veins slightly darker, more visible. Now, as I'm reaching closer to the finishing part, I took a picture of my painting, place it together with the reference in mono. I see how much I need to paint more. I see tonal values and I notice that my painting still needs some darkness, missing some shadow area. Then I can come back to my painting and add those things that I noticed I'm missing. So the petal is done. I'm really happy with the result. The water drop looks realistic, almost like it will drip off the paper. Hope you learned something new from this tutorial and enjoyed the process of painting this anemone flower petal with the water drop. Would like to hear your thoughts on this tutorial and on your process. Thank you for watching and see you in my next tutorials. Bye bye!